Well, hello, my friends, and welcome. My name is Andrew Michael. I am the team leader for the Coastal Haven Group, and I would like to introduce you to one of our senior agents and active adult community specialist, Kylene Dean.
Hi, everyone. Nice to talk to you again. Hey, Andrew.
Nice seeing you too. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we jump into this, I just want to say this is the first time we have done a live with this streaming software. So if we make a mistake, if you leave a comment and we miss it or something like that happens, rest assured we will get to you. So I apologize. But yeah, and do me a favor too, as you're watching this, throw a comment down below. And also Kylene Dean's cell phone and email, along with mine, is listed down below too. So feel free to reach out to us directly. But today's topic, we're going to do these every Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern. We're about 2 minutes early. But our goal is to do it for about roughly 45 minutes to an hour on a particular topic. And today's is going to be the pros and the cons of active adult or 55 plus homes. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to jump right on in. If it's not, then maybe you can just forward this to somebody who is, or just watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So Kylene, very briefly, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. Kind of go from there.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So my name is Kylene Dean. I'm originally from Southeast Florida, but I have been in this area since about 1999. So I'm very familiar with it. My husband was born and raised in this area in St. Johns County. We have 3 children, and we are loving life here.
Very good. Cool. And I am just kind of working my way through all the different So yeah, as of right now, we're on YouTube and Instagram and hopefully Facebook. All that stuff should be live. We'll see. So you're actually, and the funny thing is, we're both from Broward County.
Yes.
And your father was a police officer with the city of Pompano Beach.
Yes.
I was a deputy sheriff with the Broward County Sheriff's Office, which ended up taking over the city of Pompano. Nothing bad happened. That just the city commission decided it was less expensive, correctly so, to fold the city police department and move it over to the county sheriff. I think your dad had already retired by that point, though, correct?
Oh, yeah. Quite some time. Yeah. It had been a minute, that's for sure.
And that was happening just before I went to the police academy. So, yeah, so we never actually, and then my wife is a prosecuting attorney. She was back then. Now she works in a civil defense. But, yeah, so it's kind of funny. We had all these overlaps. Also, your husband, David, was in the Army, correct?
Yes, for quite some time. And now he is in the reserves.
Cool. So what was he? Now he was an engineer, or what was his?
No, he was an armor officer.
Yeah. Well, he's a commissioned officer, but do you remember what field he would have been in?
When he was active duty, or do you mean the reserves?
Active duty, yeah, active duty. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was the armor division.
Armor, so tanks. Okay.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. My best friend, I have no idea how they wouldn't have known each other, because it's a big community, but not that big, and they were both in it around the same time. But cool.
Yes. Over in Texas, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think all the armor in the Army. I was in the Marine Corps, but for our viewers, I mean, Kylene knows that. But I think all Army armor at some point. And by the way, if I'm wrong, throw a comment down below. But I believe the armor community, the tanks, because the thing about the Army is you're going to be wherever the land is the cheapest. And so, and so where there's lots of flat space, i.e. Texas, that's where you're going to be. That was one of the nice things about the Marine Corps is unless you're like a recruiter or one of these weird MOSs, you're probably going to be near the ocean. And it can't be that bad. I mean, even Jacksonville, North Carolina, Florida's fine, but Jacksonville, North Carolina, even that, yeah, it wasn't my favorite place in the world, but at least you could drive somewhere that was somewhat decent. Where I was at Fort Riley, Kansas for like 3 weeks. I went out once and I was like, what the hell? I just stayed in the barracks for the rest of the, I just played video games the rest of the time. I mean, I'm not even big into video games. It's just, what the hell? All right, moving on. So we are going to go through the pros and the cons of living in a 55 plus community. So Kylene, you are a specialist. I mean, you do, you're a real estate agent. You help our buyers and sellers in lots of different areas, but that tends to be one that you really like and that you stick with is active adult / 55 plus. So let's go ahead and start now with some of the pros. So these are customers that you have worked with. They either called our channel, the phone numbers on the channel, or maybe we've already know them, and they have decided to move area into a 55 plus community. So go ahead and give us the pros. Like, why do they like these communities? Because they don't have to live in a 55 plus.
No, and some people decide not to, and we'll get into that a little bit later, right?
Mhm.
But what I did is I boiled it down to a couple pros for us to discuss that I hear people talking to me quite a bit about, right? A couple of them, one being a sense of community and social engagement, that they gain that by moving into a community that's 55 or better.
Mhm.
Two, amazing resort style of amenities that are just beyond most other communities, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well.
Sure.
Um, Enhanced safety and how they feel about that and how they view that. And then also peace of mind, right? So we're going to go into those four and talk about those a little bit more in depth and
Mhm.
what, I have gotten feedback from my buyers and sellers.
Sure.
So overall, if you kind of just go back to the first one I mentioned, sense of community, right? And social engagement. Um, Many people that live in these 55 or better communities really appreciate having planned events. Okay. And I don't mean just a backyard barbecue, right? These are like amazing events. Okay. I'll give you an example. Over at Del Webb Nocatee,
Okay.
right? There's actually two Del Webb communities within Nocatee. There's Del Webb Ponte Vedra, which was the original community they built. And then there's Del Webb Nocatee. And I believe the last time I spoke with them, there's maybe 3 lots left.
Okay.
So, they're at the tail end, right? But for example, kind of going back to that, the Del Webb Nocatee, on February 18th, they're having this amazing Mardi Gras themed party planned for new residents,
Okay.
and just giving the new residents just a sense of community and being able to get out and meet people, socialize. And I know a lot of people love it. It's right there by their house. They can get to it easily and they just have lots of fun.
For sure. And the thing that I hear a lot is, and I've had a few people who purchase homes with us over the years, and they're like, well, I don't want to be in a 55 plus, which is fine. We're not pushing it. Whatever works best for you and your family is what you should do. But then they're like, they get kind of bored because, like, for instance, if you live in my neighborhood or your neighborhood, well, everybody's raising kids. Like, when we get off this live stream, I'm going to be helping my son with his reading homework. My wife, Lindsay's going to be helping our daughter with whatever. Then we're going to eat dinner. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do that. And then
Yeah.
tomorrow we have practices. And, and so I've had sometimes, like, with the people who are newly retired, when they relocate here, they want to do stuff with their neighbors, but if they're not raising kids, it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's this kind of, and
It's
by the
not
way,
always easy to
yeah,
meet people.
yeah, it's easier because you remember, I don't want to say her name on here, but you know who we're talking about. I sold them their house, and then you ended up selling them. And then a few years later, the same exact thing happened. She just got bored. It's like, her daughter, she moved here to be closer to her daughter, which I'd sold her daughter and her husband and their kids,
Yes.
their house a few years before in Nocatee. And so she moved down here, didn't stay in a 55 plus community. And she just got bored because her daughter's busy. I mean, she goes over and sees her, I'm sure, but she's busy doing life stuff like what I just laid out. And everybody around her is busy doing all this stuff. Plus, kids are playing basketball in the street and this and that. She moved into a 55 plus and she absolutely loves it. She's joined all these little groups and yeah. So cool. So you would say one of the pros then is the activities, not that you have to do them. It's
No.
just a great way. And do you ever hear buyers who are a little nervous because they're moving here from out of the area, and they're thinking that because they're not from here, that'll be kind of a roadblock for meeting new people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just helped some people move from out of state, and that was one thing that we discussed, and we did talk about a 55 or better community. For them, they opted, to go with a different community that was non-55 or better. But yeah, I hear it a lot where people are, moving to a different state. They're at a stage in their life, just like what you were talking about, where there's not just so many things going on to where it makes it easy for them to meet new people, right? So when you have these planned events, and like I said, they're not just typical. I mean, they're literally anything and everything that you can think of. Another example of one that they're doing at Del Webb Nocatee is a trivia night. I mean, how much fun is that, right? You know, and we'll get into this a little bit later. This one actually costs, that one's, I think, on the 21st of February.
Mhm.
That one costs $5 for it, but it goes towards the prizes, right? So it's a low fee, but it sounds like a ton of fun. So to me, it's really important. And one thing to kind of consider, some of these communities have lifestyle coordinators that are on staff,
Mhm.
right? And just put together, I was showing you earlier, a whole calendar of events. I
Cool.
mean, this is crazy, but in a great way, right? I mean, that's a
Sure.
lot to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking through some notes that you sent me before. Yeah, I mean, here's a variety of clubs: travel, pottery, sewing, photography, bingo, poker, bridge, chess, and there's pickleball. That's a big one. Line dancing, bocce ball, yoga, tap dance, Zumba, Tai Chi. Well, don't mess
Yeah.
around with them. They'll use Tai Chi. You know, they'll get you. You know. Well, cool. All right. So that is one of the pros. Then is the sense of community. You know, all of the stuff.
Andrew, I wanted to go back really quick on one of them that you mentioned. It was something that I wanted to highlight. So, remember how you said, you know, people are talking to us about they're moving from a different area, whether it's a different city or a different state, right? And they want to meet people. You know, this travel club is really cool over at Del Webb Nocatee, because you can actually register to go on trips with people within your community and go to different locations. So you're not just doing things within the community that are exciting, but they actually have a club where you can travel with your neighbors and go to different states.
Yep, no, absolutely. Yeah, my
That's
mother-in-law lives in Del Webb, Ponte Vedra. And
ah
so
yes.
now within Nocatee, how many? Now there's 40, 50, some odd communities in Nocatee at the moment, but out of those, how many of them are 55 plus?
So in Nocatee, we have two. We have Del Webb Ponte Vedra and we have Del Webb Nocatee.
Okay.
There's a couple other Del Webb communities scattered around. There's one new one that's coming up in the greater St. John's area, which is off of County Road 210.
Mhm.
That they're getting ready to have their opening. That's coming up. And then um, the same builder, Pulte Homes, actually has another community called Summer Bay, which is 55 or better, and that's in the World's Golf Village area. So if you do want to set your sights on other communities or you're open to other communities and not just Nocatee, there are some other areas that we can look at, which are very nice.
Well, yeah. So Del Webb, there's actually three 55 plus in Nocatee. There's that, what the heck is it? It's all the way into Duval County side.
Oh, Artisan.
Artisan Lakes. There you go. That's it.
Artisan Lakes. Yes, thank you. How
So
did I
would
forget
you agree then that Del Webb, whether it's in Florida or Arizona, it's a Pulte brand, and you're basically getting like a cruise ship on Earth, on land, not on Earth. They're all on Earth, but cruise ship on land type experience where everything is there, kind of entertainment wise. So,
Oh yes, and it's the neighborhoods are situated to where they're close to things that people are going to need, right?
yep.
Like for example, in Nocatee, the three that we were just talking about, it's not far to get to a grocery store or to get to Home Depot or to get to the beach. That's like within 20 minutes, right? If you want to venture out, going downtown St. Augustine's, like about a half an hour. That's not bad. Getting to a hospital, that's within close reach as well. So they position these neighborhoods to where it's very easy to get to other things that you may need or want
Sure.
outside of your neighborhood. But yes, Andrew, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's really like living on a cruise ship within your own neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Pulte has a few of them too. That it's 55 plus, but since it doesn't have all those amenities and things to do, they don't call it Del Webb.
Correct. Like that's like the one that I was just referencing earlier called Summer Bay. So generally their amenities are just a little bit more toned down, right?
Mhm.
And then, you know, with that, you tend to see that the fees are a little bit lower as well. There's a few differences. For example, Summer Bay is gated, right? But it's not gated by a staffed person. Whereas, you know, Del Webb, Ponte Vedra and Del Webb Nocatee does have an actual person at the gate. So there's a few differences, but it's all about weighing them and balancing them, location, everything.
Okay. Um, yeah, cool. Give me one thing here.
We have a question?
No, I did not. I was trying to figure out something on Instagram, but that's okay. We'll move on.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing is you mentioned that they offer enhanced safety and security. So go ahead and explain that one to us.
Yeah. So when you're building from dirt, right, you choose a lot, and you've chosen your floor plan and everything. You have a couple appointments. You have a design appointment, as most of us know, but you have another appointment with the company, where you can sit down and talk about what features you want to add to your home that's going to enhance the security levels to your house. One example that comes to mind, that a buyer that I just worked with, they added, on the outside of their home, were cameras. That was really important to them. For travel purposes, when they are leaving, they wanted to have, cameras all around the property. And this goes over and beyond what a lot of people now have, like the Ring doorbells, right? So they wanted to add those security features to their house. And that was one thing that they did and they really liked. It was worth it to them. It was high on their priority list. Another thing I mentioned before that a lot of people really like is it's a gated community. And like I was saying before, in Del Webb Nocatee and in Del Webb Ponte Vedra, it's staffed by a person. So a lot of people feel really good about having that security, within their neighborhood. It's a really big priority for a lot of people that I work with. One thing to kind of consider, right, is you have to have a barcode, as a resident. And you go through the process after you close, you bring in all your documents, and your real estate agent, like myself, will go with you. You'll bring in all your closing documents, you'll provide your IDs, and then they'll give you the little bar gate codes. And then you just put it on your car and you're able to get in freely. And then you can also get one for, from what I've been told, a family member. So one of my buyers actually gave a barcode to one of their family members that comes in and out, quite frequently to visit them and do things with them. So she would have access to the property as well.
Okay. So you get gated. Not all of them come this way, but like the Nocatee one, all three of those are gated. But they have like all your medical stuff, your groceries. Honestly, you could probably do away with a car, and just, your doctor, unless you have to go to like the emergency room, but then hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does, you can take an ambulance, I guess. But you've got like grocery shopping, day-to-day shopping, dry cleaning, restaurants, everything right there. You've got more medical between, was it the Baptist Health Building, the Flagler Health Building, all the outbuildings for all the other medical stuff there. I mean, dang, it's got like everything right there.
It does. It's all really close by. And I mean, I know you have been in Nocatee a lot, as I have. And people who are traveling in will see the same, right? Just a lot of people are walking, biking. And as you mentioned, if you kind of want to skip the car situation and you don't want that added expense, a lot of people opt for a golf cart, because you have the pathways in Nocatee that make it very easy. There's golf cart parking, up where the Publix is and the different stores, all within Nocatee. So, that's a really nice added feature as well.
There you go. All right. So you have next up, peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So by the way, after this, we're going to go to the cons. So if you're considering this, hang out for a few minutes, because now we're going to talk about reasons people don't like living in 55 plus communities. So go ahead.
Yeah, there's some things to discuss on that side too. So, it may be obvious, but it's one thing that's really important to a lot of people. So in these communities that, you are restricted on the age for where it's 55 or better, right? That allows people to foster a sense of community among people that are within a similar stage of life. And I know you touched on this a little bit, but, for people who are looking for that, that's really important to them. And, I was writing down, and I kind of already mentioned it, but it coincides with what I was talking about with the travel club, right? So you've got this community where it's restricted for 55 or better, right? And people within the community are looking to meet other individuals that are at those similar stages of life and looking for similar things that they like to do, places they like to travel, or things that they don't want a part of the community, right? Like, for example, they like having the peace of mind that younger people are not running around and, let's say, playing basketball constantly outside of their house. And that makes them feel a little bit better. That's what they're looking for.
No, for sure. Okay, well, cool. Now let's move on over to the restrictions, not the cons. Now we could say way past dinner time, with all the kind of and there's no solution in anything, real estate or whatever, that is perfect for everybody. And adult community / 55 plus, that is not the one exception to that rule. So what do you think? Like, and I agree with number one here on your list. What is the biggest drawback or complaints you hear when people are selling their homes, which they've hired us to help them sell their home in a 55 plus and they're moving out? What is the biggest reason or drawback that you hear?
Yeah, so I highlighted a few things under restrictions, and one thing was, governing the home exteriors. One thing that's obvious, for example, you have with the 55 or better, right? Then you're listing your home within a community that's 55 or better. So then you're selling to people that qualify to be able to purchase the home, that fall under those restrictions of 55 or better, those age restrictions, right? Another thing that you and I encounter quite a bit is signage. You can't put signage in the yard when the home is for sale.
Okay, but yeah, like for instance, I've had they bought a house with a in Del Webb, Ponte Vedra, and they hated it. And the reason they hated it is they wanted to have their garden with fruits and vegetables, like a lot of it, more than just like a little bit. They wanted all these things in Del Webb, Ponte Vedra. Now they may have changed some of these rules. That was a long time ago, but we just sold them. They bought a house. Anyway, they currently live in Nassau County. We helped them up there in a neighborhood called Southern Pines because they wanted a 1 acre yard. And they didn't want to, and a lot of these 55 plus communities in our area anyway, they're known for having very small yards. So between the restrictions and the small yards, they just said the heck with it. And they went up to, but yeah, the restrictions is, and you should definitely read the bylaws before you, but you mentioned one, grandchildren staying with you. And I'll tell you a story. I'm not going to say names, obviously, because it's one of our customers, but what are the rules for having your kids? Like your grandkids could stay at your house, correct?
Yeah, they can stay, but there's a certain amount of days, and it's community specific. So you do need to reference the bylaws for that specific community to double check that. But it's all outlined in the bylaws as to how many days, grandkids can stay overnight for a consecutive period of time. One thing that kind of like spills over into for us to talk about is children hours, right? So for example, let's take a look. I was researching that so that we had the information, and over at Del Webb Nocatee, children are allowed in the amenities Sunday through Monday from 2 to 5 p.m. and then Tuesday from 2 to 7 p.m.
Well, here's one thing about, and yes, I'm sure you're correct, but the thing with the Del Webbs in Nocatee is like, and again, my mother-in-law lives in one of them. In theory, she could take my kids on those days. But why would she when she can go over to the Nocatee amenities? Because not all communities are like this. But like the you and I were talking about earlier, the Del Webb in E-Town. If you buy one of those homes, you do not have access to the regular E-Town amenities. So if your grandkids are staying with you, you can't take them over to E-Town amenities. Whereas, the Del Webb, Ponte Vedra, Del Webb, Nocatee, we're not pushing Nocatee, we just talk about it. Trailmark, the Reverie homes there. The home there, you can go to either the Reverie amenities or you could go to the Trailmark ones. So if your grandkids are staying with you, I mean, yeah, during certain hours, you can take them to the Reverie amenities. But like my kids are, while we're doing this, my wife took them out of the house because they're off the chain. They're 5 and 9 years old. They're running crazy. Yeah, I mean, you laugh, your mom. They're not going to sit there quietly with their hands folded. They're going to run around and act crazy, which is fine. Go to where the families are and run around and act crazy with all the other kids. But some of
Yeah.
those communities don't have that, so you do have to watch it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's why when you look at these things, that they're things that we need to discuss and balance, right? When we get together and start talking to people, just to try to help them determine what is going to fit their needs the best. But yes, you brought up a good point. Like for example, reverie, right? So you have restrictive hours where children cannot come to the amenities over in reverie, which is the 55 or better community within Trailmark, right? But um, but the grandparent can take those children and take them to the amenities, the pool within Trailmark. Trailmark has amazing amenities, right? So it's the same scenario with like that you were discussing with Del Webb and Nocatee. So for those communities, right, and I'm referencing right now the two Del Webb ones, Nocatee and Ponte Vedra, right? So
Yeah.
you've got restrictive children hours at the amenities. But if a grandparent wanted to take a grandchild to participate in, like, let's say swim lessons, or help them with that, then they can go over to the Nocatee pool.
Yep.
So it really, that's what I was saying beforehand. It just kind of depends on how you look at it, and you can take one of these cons and really turn it into a pro.
Sure.
Right.
No, cool. All right, so we've got the restrictions. Yes. So, what was my mother-in-law's friends? It was funny. Now all of them in the 55 plus have HOAs, and they
Yes.
vary in degrees of seriousness. Some of them are just like, don't do anything crazy in your front yard, and don't paint your house hot pink, and we're cool. Other ones, not so much. And so she got like it was not my mother-in-law, it was her friend. She got like a ceramic turtle or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it was part of like her little landscaping in front of the house. And when she was in front of the house, one of her neighbors walked by and goes, "Oh, is that your turtle?" Well, it's a ridiculous question because it's like a cement turtle in her front yard. I mean, who else is this going to belong to? No,
Yeah.
it's fine. He left it here. I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. So, well, anyway, so she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. I just put it out like a week ago, whatever." Well, then it took about a week or two, and of course, she gets a letter from the HOA that she altered the outside of, like her little gardening, and she didn't get permission to put that in there. Yeah, I mean, again, we're not talking about like a 20-foot. I mean, it was just like something you get at Lowe's or something. But yeah, no, you definitely want to know what you're getting into with that. So that's why we provide the bylaws.
Yeah, and in some of the communities kind of build on that. I mean, I've even seen where they have a restriction on the number of plants that you can have outside, right? And when, somebody might be like, ooh, they're going to restrict the number of plants. Potentially, you have to refer to the bylaws. But
Yeah.
if you look on the flip side of that, right? Sometimes you do want to limit the amount of plants. Sometimes people kind of get a little fun with the amount of plants they put on
Well,
their front porch.
like the thing with Del Webb, I don't know if that bylaw is still there or not, and we'll move on. But with the vegetables, and the reason for that is they don't want you bringing wildlife into the yard. That's why like they have a high fence. It's kind of funny. It almost looks a little bit like a high security area, but it's not. But anyway, you go in there and like the neighbors can get like a elevated garden bed, and you can grow corn, you can grow cabbage, you can grow whatever you want in there because it's fine. It's fenced, and like the animals can't come out of the woods and get to it. So they
Right.
just don't want like I don't want to keep talking about her, but my mother-in-law's neighbor one year, like her yard got tore up by wild boars because they were looking for grubs, which
Yeah.
are those little worms in the grass. But anyway, all right, let's move on. Next up, and yeah, this is a valid. The costs is you have down here is another drawback. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the cost can be a big thing, right? You hit on one of them kind of a little bit beforehand. So outlined here, you have obviously the HOA fees. We've talked about it in other videos, but you've got CDD fees, of course. But a couple of things to note is when you do have these planned activities, right? They're not always free. A good bit of them can be, but not all of them are. So like, for example, I was referencing that trivia night. There was a cost, for the trivia night, but it went towards something great because it went towards the prizes. Okay. But one thing I kind of wanted to mention that not a lot of people know about is over in Del Webb, Nocatee, they have an on-site tavern, if you will. So it's really, really nice. You can go in and dine, it's right by the pool. It's beautiful. But you're charged $60 a month when you live there. and it's use or lose. So if you decide, you're not going to go to the on-site dining, it's actually called Cypress Cafe. If you don't go there that month at all, you still are charged $60, right? So just kind of keeping in mind, people who are working on a little bit more of a limited budget, it's just
Yeah.
good to know before you're getting into it. So it's just things that I like to have conversations with about people. Let them
You're absolutely right. And I'm not for or against CDD fees or HOAs or any of that stuff. It just is what it is. It just whether it works for you or not is what matters. But my thought on it is like, let's go and look and see what you get. And if you're going to use it, then pay the extra money. If you're not, then don't. But I think in this area, you'll agree that we have a lot of 55 plus neighborhoods and a variety of budgets. For instance, San Solido has one, what do you call it? One strip of it. They call it the Freedom Home section, and it's 55 plus. It does not have a CDD fee. It doesn't have all the amenities, but the neighbors we've sold several homes in there in the last couple of months, actually, but a lot of them are, the neighbors all get to know each other. They all go do things, even though they don't have the formal clubs and they don't have the cruise ship on Earth type atmosphere. They still have, still 55 plus, and it's still, they still have a few things, and that's fine for them. On the other hand, you could go up to like Del Webb Nocatee where you're spending way more, but you get way more. So it's really just, in my opinion, yeah, the cost is a factor. You should definitely consider it. But yeah, it just depends on what you're getting and if you're going to use it. If you're not going to use it, then don't pay for it.
Yeah. So it's knowledge is power, right? And it's understanding what you're getting into, and what you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a little bit, kind of wanted to jump over to the next con,
Well, before we do, one quick thing I just want to throw out there. If you're watching us, let us know where you are. We always like finding out. We practiced with a few live streams back around the holidays. We actually had somebody from Ireland watching us. Yeah, we've had a few interesting ones. So wherever you're from, just throw a comment, if you're on Instagram, I won't see it till afterwards. Go ahead and throw it in there and I'll respond later. If it's Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and throw a comment down below. I should see it. We just welcome you and kind of see where people are watching us from. But cool, moving on. All right, so what did you have next up, Kylene?
Oh, well, we've talked about it a little bit, but it was just something I was going to bring up, and one other point regarding it, but age restrictions, right? So obviously they're 55 or better communities. They are going to check the identification and make sure. So one person living, purchasing and or leasing needs to be 55 or older, and the other person needs to be 19 or older.
At least, yeah.
So that's the other criteria. Again, like I said, they're going to be checking the IDs, right? But kind of one thing to bring up in terms of, age restriction, and it's brought up to you, myself, and, other agents on our team, people looking for the multi-generational kind of lifestyle, right? So if that's something that you're looking for, you're not going to be able to achieve that as easily, in these 55 or better communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, possible. Okay, so let's define a couple as it goes for the 55 plus. So let me ask you this. Let's say you have a couple and one person is 60 and the other person's 40. Would they be able to live, but there's no children in the house. Would they be able to live in a 55 plus community?
Yes.
Cool. Now, let's say you had a couple both are in their 60s, but they have their 40-year-old child living with them. Not a child in the eyes of the law, but their child, and this person's 40 and living with them. Would that be okay?
Yes, you bring up a good point. Yes, you can, because the person is over 19 years of age.
Yeah, you could do the multi-generational living, and if there's no kids.
Correct, yes.
When you have kids, that's when reason I know that is when we bought our house, it was I don't want to go into it, it's a little side story, but we bought our home here. It was new construction. It had to be built. And Lindsay was 28 at the time. And we had, we went under contract. It was going to be about 6 months till our house was built. Well, she's an attorney and this never happens, but she got a job in a week.
Wow.
And And she couldn't just say, no, I'm going to turn it down, but I want to come up in 6 months. So she had to come up. And so she was basically at 28, I want to say, living in Del Webb with her mom. And I had to stay in South Florida, and it's a long story. But anyway, so yeah, it's funny. So she was 28 years old. She couldn't access the amenities, but she could live there, and it was fine. But yeah. So yeah, so when you have kids is when that complicates it for sure.
She couldn't access the amenities?
It was kind of weird. No, Nocatee is super strict about that because they have so many thousands of. She could, but she'd have to use a guest pass.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask because the last I was in Del Webb Nocatee, there's a certain amount of people that you can actually sign in. They have to show their driver's license.
Yeah.
If they have one, and they actually have to sign in. And there's a maximum number of people. I believe it's at Del Webb Nocatee, it's 4, but at the pool it's 6.
Yep. Yeah, I forget how, because I wasn't there at the time. I mean, they were up there and I was down in Fort Lauderdale. But yeah, she could go to the gym with like my mother-in-law, but she had to sign her in and stuff like that. One last thing and we're not, we don't only sell a Nocatee. That's not the only thing we're talking about. It's just a popular one, which is why we keep going back to it. But they have their grandparent passes. And so like if you lived in, let's say, a different neighborhood there, and you have X amount of passes for people that you could bring in. And if you need to go beyond that, you could buy more. But a grandparent pass, I want to say it's unlimited if it's your grandchildren. So they have you'll have to check into that because each neighborhood has its own little things. Okay, community size. That was another con. So go ahead with that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way you look at it, right? But one of the statistics, actually, where your mother-in-law lives, Del Webb, Ponte Vedra, there's about 2,000 homes in that neighborhood within Nocatee, right? So somebody sitting there could look at that as a con, saying, that's just a little too large. I'm looking for a little bit more of a quaint type of atmosphere and neighborhood. So that's one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up. But when you kind of look at it on the flip side, the way it was developed and laid out was really smart, in my opinion, in the sense of that and I think you referenced this beforehand, there's little neighborhoods, little pockets of neighborhoods, if you will, within Del Webb, Ponte Vedra. Yep. So while it's large in the sense it's got 2,000 homes, your specific neighborhood inside that could be much smaller and make you feel like you just have a little bit more sense of community and quietness.
Yeah, and I think most of the people in Del Webb that I know, or any of those type of communities, they do tend to know their neighbors a lot more. Yeah. I mean, one person it wouldn't work for, I sold a house a few years ago, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, but it was funny because I'm just a chatty person, like talking to people, like whatever. She let me know pretty quick that wasn't going to happen. She just doesn't. She wouldn't be mean. She just is that way, and she doesn't like people. She wants whatever. So I ended up selling her a house all the way out in Hastings. She's on like a 1 acre yard. I ran into her at the farmer's market. She absolutely loves it out there. But yeah, she's got like a 1 acre yard, no HOA, and doesn't care what the neighbors are doing. But yeah, but there are some people who just like, if they don't want, the house is close together and they don't want to socialize with their neighbors, then yeah, I would think 55 plus is probably not going to be the best bet for you.
Yeah, so it's just something to kind of consider, and going in and out of the different communities, right? People always find which one just really fits their needs more.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we do here too. So when you're working with buyers, when they're, they call on our channel. And by the way, if you have Kylene's numbers down below, you can either give her a call, you can call the other number there. Speak to someone else from the team. It's up to you. But yeah, when someone does call, and they're kind of looking at different things, I think you would agree some of them do go the 55 plus route, some of them don't. It's just whatever.
Yeah, cool. There's a lot of amazing neighborhoods and areas to select from. It's just drilling down what you're looking for. So having these conversations and kind of balancing out, like we just did, the pros and cons, is really important.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot. I don't think we have any comments. I got booted out of Instagram. I don't know what happened there, but another agent on our team texted me and said that I'm still live. So, okay, so I can't see those comments. But if there's any comments there, I will respond later. And yeah, I don't think we have any comments or questions. So I think on that note, we'll wrap up. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We appreciate it. If you want to see more like this, then go ahead and depending on what platform you're watching, we put this out onto our YouTube channel. We also have it on Instagram and Facebook. But if you like our YouTube channel or you follow us and subscribe to the YouTube channel, I guess you like it on Instagram. I don't remember. Follow.
Follow on Instagram.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I just showed my age.
I was just gonna say, Andrew, we're showing our age here.
Yeah, pretty much. Whichever one it is, just follow that, and then we're going to be doing these on different topics every Monday with different agents from the team and other people too. We're going to talk about homeowners insurance. We're going to talk about lending, all kinds of fun stuff. So there you go. All right, Kylene, thank you a lot for your time. I appreciate it, and yeah, I will talk to you soon.
Okay, have a great day, guys. Bye.